hope you all enjoyed yesterday. No real announcements, but just want to say we had some awesome engagement and questions throughout every session yesterday, so would love to see more of the same today. And we are giving Jason a well-deserved day off, and we have a fantastic chairperson joining us today. We are joined by Devon O'Rourke, who is the founder and managing partner at Fluvio. So welcome, Devon.
Thank you, Rose. I'm going to use this mic. Can everyone hear me? Put that down there just in case. Great. Thanks for the intro. Welcome to day 2. So this is me. My name is Devon O'Rourke. As Rose mentioned, I'm the founder and managing partner of Fluvio, product marketing consulting firm. I am from New York, so local to the area. Before I founded Fluvio, I worked at companies like Amazon, Etsy, and Tremor Video in the ad tech world. And I founded Fluvio just over 2 years ago, and I'm happy to chat about that later. I will not take the time to do that here. But hope everyone enjoyed yesterday. I know it's the first time a lot of people are back in person. I was at the Austin Summit about a month ago with my full team, and it was a great experience. That's why I'm happy to be here today. Definitely a little rusty to be chatting with people in person. I don't know if anyone else feels that way. Zoom, I feel like I'm like a professional at this point. I get on, I know exactly what my routine is. Then there's this cutoff, so you're like, oh, we're at time, so, see you later. I think that makes it a little easier. It's like in person, you got to figure out how to cut off, and it's kind of crazy. But I think we'll get used to it. Hopefully people will start to get used to it starting today. So quick recap before we kick off today. Learned a bunch of great things. I was really blown away by the presentations yesterday. I thought they were spectacular. A couple things I really enjoyed. I enjoyed how we learned about how product marketing can learn from art and from the Mona Lisa. And I also learned in that presentation that Lexus is a Toyota brand. I actually just didn't know that. Maybe other people did, but that was pretty cool. Learned about how important it is to listen and empathize over the first 90 days of your new job. I think that is always a good reminder. Take time to meet with people, listen, don't just jump in and try to execute on things. You need to really learn what's going on. Learned how to make an impact as the first PMM hire. I know based on hands yesterday, a lot of people in here are the first PMM hire or the only PMM. So there's a lot of challenges with that. And there was a couple sessions yesterday that discussed that. Learned how to effectively market services versus products. I've obviously started to do that myself as a consulting firm. It's not that different, but I think something that a lot of companies who have services baked into their offering can really learn from. Learn from Jason here why you should or shouldn't try to create a new category. That's a big trend these days. I don't think you necessarily always have to do it, so that was great to listen to. Why trust is critical and how to go about building it. And how to get from good to great with customer interviews. So just a lot of really good sessions yesterday, and we have a great lineup today. And we'll dig into that in a bit. But before we do, I wanted to, this might be a hot take, I don't know. I know Jason yesterday started out with participation. I'm just gonna kind of preach, but hopefully people either are aligned with it or they would like to debate me later. But when Rose told me there were over 200 attendees this week, that got me thinking about 5 years ago, how I felt like no one really understood what product marketing was. A lot of this has been talked about. It'll be talked about again today, I'm sure. My colleagues, even at the time that I worked with, didn't quite get what product marketing and the role entailed. Again, I don't think this is surprising. It's a topic that we talk about all the time. Hell, even the Product Marketing Alliance's book is called Product Marketing Misunderstood. So it's sort of at the forefront. It's kind of our narrative at this point. So perhaps I'm the first to say it, but I think product marketing has officially arrived. I'll quickly walk through 3 trends that, in addition to my experience working with startups and enterprise technology companies, leads me to believe that our time has come and that perhaps we should shed that narrative. So firstly, based on the State of Product Marketing Leadership 2022 report, so I think that came out just very recently, product marketing leaders are owning the most important initiatives and metrics on behalf of their companies. Notably, we're being measured against win rates, a critical metric in growing and outpacing competitors in your space, and are being recruited for our ability to develop and implement go-to-market strategies, an area that has been historically owned by CEOs directly. And let me tell you, running a consulting firm has shown me that there is absolutely strong demand for these somewhat intangible skills. And it's coming from the most senior folks within these organizations. CEOs, CPOs, CMOs, all the C's and the O's, they're all scrambling to figure out how to effectively build a go-to-market engine for their company. Digging into this further, the PMA's Product Marketing Perceptions Among the C-Suite report, hard to say that fast, indicates that 2/3 of C-suite execs now view product marketing as a strategic function versus a tactical. I won't even mention support because we don't come close to falling into that. But we don't have comparisons on this in terms of how we rank against other departments like product marketing or engineering. We don't have historical trends, which hopefully the PMA will continue to track this, so we'll see that. But I believe that this percentage has increased dramatically over the past 5 years, let alone the last 10. And so why do executives perceive product marketing leaders as strategically important? Well, have you ever tried to deconstruct everything that encompasses a go-to-market model? Based on the go-to-market we've developed at Fluvio, there are 23 distinct initiatives that make up a go-to-market engine, and they all have to fit nicely together. So this is obviously a lot. You probably can't even read it, right? So I have taken a step at trying to simplify it. Probably can do even more simplification, but when you cut it down at its core, there are really 5 areas of a go-to-market engine. There's research, messaging and positioning, go-to-market planning, go-to-market execution, and then finally learning and refinement. It's that sort of feedback loop that then accelerates the engine and kind of keeps it humming. So looking at this and how complex it is it not evident that you need a strategic, analytical, perceptive, and influential personnel to generate and maintain the go-to-market engine for your company? And that's exactly what product marketers are capable of doing, and it's what executives are noticing, and they're noticing the impact that we're bringing each and every day. So on to number 2, the second trend. More and more product marketers are making their way into the C-suite. For example, Apple's Senior Vice President of Worldwide Marketing, it's essentially Apple's CMO. They don't have a CMO. He's on their leadership page. Greg Joswiak, I don't know. My wife's Polish. She could probably tell me if I'm pronouncing that right. I didn't test with her. He goes by Jaws, was promoted from his VP of product marketing position into this role in 2020. So rising from product marketing within Apple into this marketing leadership role. This is the most valuable company in the world with a record valuation or market cap of over $2.8 trillion at this point. If that's not validation enough, how about all of the product marketing leaders we've seen engaged with the Product Marketing Alliance recently moving into the C-suite themselves? For example, Yanni Solomon is now the CMO at Uptime, and Tamara Graminsky, who's going to be here speaking today, is now the Chief Strategy Officer at Unbounce. I only see this trend accelerating over the next few years. So it'll be exciting to see who in this room will make their way into the C-suite, if they're not already. And finally, on to trend number 3. Salaries are climbing. Now, if you're trying to hire, like us at Fluvio, this can be pretty tough and challenging, particularly right now, these last couple months for some reason. But if you're a product marketer and you're looking for your next gig, this is quite promising. And regardless of who you are or where you are in your career, this trend is absolutely validating. The average US baseline salary is now just over $146K a year. This is an increase from last year's report when the average was $136. So the average, this is of course across all roles. You'll see leaders in the VP area are at, I think it's, I can't read it, 220K, I believe, base salary. So in general, going up 10K just in 1 year. And I think this is actually from 2021. So we'll see what 2022 is. But clearly, salary increases show that there's demand for our services. There's a supply problem. There's not that many people that are, product marketers and are product marketing leaders. And so I just see this continuing to accelerate. So let's take a moment to just acknowledge how far product marketing has come in the past decade. If you've been doing this for 10 years, then I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. We're finally being recognized for our strategic value, and I believe we can finally shed the narrative of being misunderstood or undervalued. So kudos to all of you who have helped us get there. I think that we have to sort of rewrite our narrative and lead people to where we know we are. And we know that leaders across the tech industry are recognizing our value, so we should really play that up. So anyway, that's my spiel. Happy to chat about that after. But without further ado, let me introduce our first set of speakers. So we will have Hannah Pavelo, Director of Product Marketing and Measurement at Gopuf. She has 10 years of experience at companies like Millward Brown and Meta. And then on her team, we have Blue Bookhard, Product Marketing Manager at Gopuf, previously at Snap, Meta, and Google. Impressive experiences. I want to know how Gopuf is recruiting. They're going to come up and talk about how they launched a hybrid digital and physical product in a saturated market.
Yeah, they said that. Thank you.
I'm going to slide off the side. Okay. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. So, as Devin mentioned, my name is Hannah Pavelo, and I'm the Director of Product Marketing and Measurement at Gopuf. Happy to chat about what it means to run a product marketing and a measurement team simultaneously later. And this is Blue Bookhard, who is the product marketing managing for our sampling product, which is what we're going to talk about today. What we're going to talk a little bit about is how Gopuf launched what we call a hybrid digital and physical product. And what we're going to do is I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what Gopuf is, because I'm assuming probably most of you don't know, and then talk about how a product marketing exercise led us to create an entirely new ad offering for our brand partners. And then Blue will do a deep dive into the sampling offering, which is part of Gopuf Ad Solutions. So what is Gopuf? So Gopuf is a commerce platform. Ultimately, we're a platform that specializes in instant needs goods, and I'll talk about what that means, delivered to customers in 30 minutes or less. So what you're thinking about is, 8 p.m., finished dinner, wish you had dessert, forgot to go to the grocery store, Ben & Jerry's at your door in 30 minutes or less. Or Thursday afternoon, you're at your office, or realistically, you're in your apartment, and realize that the only way you're going to get through the afternoon is coffee, Advil, and maybe a bag of Doritos. We're at your door in 30 minutes or less. That is the Gopuf value prop to our customers. Our vision is to become the world's go-to solution for immediate, everyday needs. We currently have over 600 locations across the US nationally, and expanded into UK and France within the last 6 months, so starting to build our international presence as well. So what makes us different in the instant commerce space? So there's a couple of things. So the first is vertical integration. So what this means is for other delivery services, those are essentially third-party marketplaces. They take customers and then they match them to retailers or restaurants, depending on the service, and then they handle the last mile delivery, so bringing the actual order to the customer. We're different in that we own all our own inventory. We are buying directly from brand partners, so we own all the products that we sell, and then we're housing all of that inventory in local micro-fulfillment centers within our delivery zones. That means from the moment a customer enters into our ecosystem, and I'll talk about what that digital ecosystem looks like, we own that customer journey from the order being placed, to the order being packed, to the order being delivered, to that customer, end to end. The second thing is instant access. So by the fact that we own that entire customer journey, combined with the fact that we use local micro-fulfillment centers, meaning actual warehouses in the locations that we deliver to, we're able to do this very quickly. So goal is 30 minutes or less. You should try it. It really is as fast as you think it's going to be, and it's pretty amazing in that sense. So instant access. And part of this also means that in most locations, we're doing this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So again, 8 p.m., most stores are closed, ice cream at your door. 9 a.m., you want coffee, something that we can do. Then the third piece is smart selection. So as I mentioned, we have a digital ecosystem, meaning the majority of our orders come in through our app or our website. That means the majority of all of our customer touchpoints are coming in through that digital ecosystem, and we have a really good idea of what our customers want and what they're buying. That means that we can use that information to make sure that we are carrying the right assortment, but also tailoring that assortment to whatever the local preferences are. So it's not just one size fits all, but really understanding what customers want, where they want, and when they want it. So all of this is sort of what our value proposition to customers is and has been for a long time. But what we started to do in 2021 was think about, well, what was our value proposition to brand partners? So this is sort of how we speak about working with our brand partners. So in the world of instant needs, we partner with leading brands to drive businesses. And this is where really a product marketing exercise led us to a fundamental change and an entirely new product offering to our brand partners. So for a long time, the way that we thought about brand partners was exactly the partners piece of it. They were somebody that we worked with in order to enable our value prop to customers. So we need to work with the consumer packaged goods companies in order to ensure that we have the inventory to give to our customers. And they work with us the way that they would work with any one of many, many retail channels or partners. There's some unique benefits to us in the sense that we have 24/7 delivery, so we naturally sort of have incremental purchase occasions happening on our platform that they're not going to get from other channels, but ultimately we were just another channel that they were using. One thing that we realized was we needed to start thinking about brand partners as actual customers as opposed to just a partner that we worked with. And so that led us to an exercise to think about what do brand partners really want from us and need from us? And then how do we take the strengths that we've developed as a company and leverage those into an offering for our brand partners? So what this exercise sort of looked like. So we took stock of what we actually had, and there's 4 things I'm going to talk about here. So 1, deep relationships with consumer packaged goods. 2, owned and operated surfaces. 3, customer insights. And 4, operations infrastructure. And then we really thought about what those brand partners need from us and what that means. So deep relationships with consumer packaged goods. So in order to deliver products to customers, it takes years of building relationships with these brand partners. You need to work with them to ensure that you're carrying the right product SKUs from their assortment. You need to have good logistics relationships with them. You need the infrastructure to make sure that we're getting their products to our fulfillment centers and out to customers. This takes years to develop, but means that by the time we got to 2021, we had really deep and strong relationships with a lot of our brand partners sort of across the industry. The second thing is owned and operated surfaces. So I mentioned this, but the majority of our orders are coming in through our iOS, Android app, and as well as our website. And that means that there's a lot of place that we have in front of actual customers who are already in our ecosystem with the intent to buy. The third thing is our customer insights. So when you have a digital ecosystem and you can track and see what people are actually doing, we know what people want to buy, what they don't want to buy. How likely are they to buy any given product? How likely are they to try a different product within the same category? How likely are they to try a different category that they've never tried before? And what does all of this purchase behavior look like over time and across segments and across cohorts? All of that is to say we know a lot about what people want on our platform. And the last one is operations infrastructure. So it's one thing to build a digital product. It's another to build a product that goes from a digital interaction, whether that's adding a bag of chips to your cart, to an actual bag of chips in somebody's hands. In order to do that, you need to spend a lot of time working on your logistics and your operations to make all of that work. So those are sort of the things that we had, and those are the strengths that we developed in order to deliver our core value to our customers. And when we started to think about why brands partner with us, what we realized is ultimately that they were partnering with us to enable their business, so to get their products into their customers' hands. But what they wanted from us is for us to drive their business. They wanted us to actually accelerate their business beyond the natural growth that they would have just by being present on our platform. And that insight is what led us to create an entirely new offering, which is our ads products for brand partners. So how does that translate to what we had? So 1, the deep relationship with CPGs meant that when we launched GoPup Ad Solutions in Q2 of 2021, we had an automatic awareness amongst our target audiences, CPGs, because we already had those relationships built. We had demand generated right from the go, so we had multiple advertisers participating in every alpha and beta that we were launching because they were already aware of what our business was and how they could interact. Our owned and operated surfaces meant that we could really quickly convert spaces within our app into ad supply, essentially. And not only did we have built-in ad supply, we also had an audience that was high-intent purchasers ready to see those ads and make purchases based off of them. Our customer insights is essentially what any modern day ad platform needs in order to be relevant. So the fact that when we launched GoPup Ad Solutions, we automatically were able to have relevancy as a component to our ad products meant that the ads that we were showing customers fit in line with that customer journey. They were already there to buy whatever category or product that they wanted, and what we were doing was giving brands the opportunity to fit within that customer journey and add value to those customers as well as the brands. And the last one is the operations infrastructure. And this one I think is sort of interesting in that this is where we really were able to find a way to differentiate us from some of the other bigger digital ad offerings that exist in the consumer packaged good landscape. And that's the fact that we don't just deliver impressions. We're not just showing people an ad. What we care about is actually delivering a product to a person. So when we talk about this, we don't just say we deliver impressions, we deliver products. And what that means is you're never gonna see an ad on GoPuff if that person can't buy that product in that moment. So if it's out of stock, we don't show the ad. If it's not available in that location, we don't show the ad. So that operational infrastructure is what enables us to make sure that we are delivering not just the impression, but also the actual product. So I'm gonna take you back in time a little bit. I don't know if you can tell from the style of this slide, but this was the initial slide that we had that we used to launch GoPup Ad Solutions in Q2 of 2021. Okay, it's not that far back in time. What we essentially did was we took our value proposition from our customers, which is product in hand in just minutes, and extended it to our brands with impression to product in hands. This is essentially what makes us pretty unique within that CPG ad landscape, in that the fact that it's not just the impression we're delivering, but also the actual product. And while launching GoPup Ad Solutions was a success from a go-to-market standpoint, and I measure success in this case in terms of advertiser adoption, one of the things that we learned very quickly was when making a solution that is both digital and physical, so both showing the impression but also delivering the product, that adds a lot of logistical challenges to it. And the second thing that we really learned from this was that we needed to be a lot closer internally and coordinated amongst our teams. So every single one of our GoPup Ad Solution products, from sampling to programmatic to in-app placements, is a collaboration between our tech team, so product and engineering, our operations teams, our sales teams, as well as product marketing. And I think some of these challenges are really present, and a good example of them you'll see is in our sampling offering, which Blue will take you through.
Thanks. Hi everyone, I'm Blue Bookhard, Product Marketing Manager at GoPuff, focused on in-bag programs and sampling. So this is the unique selling proposition that we propose to brand partners as we discuss sampling, leveraging the digital storefront to deliver physical product trials. At GoPuff, we pride ourselves in our speed. So one of the sort of unique propositions that we offer to brand partners is going from someone opening up their phone, looking to buy something, they can see a product, and then that product is within their hands in 30 minutes or less. So you can imagine, for an advertiser, this is incredibly valuable. And any good product marketer knows that you need to get inbound. You need to do some research in the competitive landscape to understand the products that you're building actually have a fit with the advertiser you're working with. So the past 2 years have really been a sea change in customer behavior and purchase activity. In a world where traditional sort of sampling outlets like music festivals or in-store tastings really just weren't getting the same amount of reach and breadth and conversions to brand partners as they used to. People were now turning to digital storefronts and grocery stores, and digital storefronts and instant needs platforms as a means to get groceries delivered to them. So these are a few stats that we use to kind of just orient ourselves as we thought about advertiser needs. 4 to 5 customers, this is people at large, not only through GoPuff, are more likely to purchase a brand that they sampled. From 2020 to 2021, there was a 26% increase in demand for e-commerce sampling. So that's going from someone seeing a product online to then getting it in person. And then CPG marketers agree that sampling is essential for campaign success. Again, these are metrics that are outside of GoPuff. These are competitive sort of reports that were pulled. But we use this to kind of gauge demand and gauge interest in the sampling product at large. And then as we turn to our core GoPuff audience, so people who had the app downloaded and actually purchased on our platform, we found sort of an interesting trend. 71%, or the majority of them, are up to trying something new. So this could be trying a new product. This could be trying a new experience at large. The idea being that you open up the app and you don't really know what you're going to get. And we're here to sort of surprise and delight. We're here to give you something interesting within your shopping experience. You're not just going in and buying the same product over and over again on Gopuf. And then by the time I was placed on the product, we actually had already launched our sampling offering. So just doing a little bit of what I consider cleanup and understanding sort of how our products and how our solutions are working at the current time. And this stat that we found was 3 out of 5, again, the majority of people who purchased brands after they had received a sample were new to the brand. So the idea being that you might have received a sample for the first time, never heard of the brand before, and then went back to Gopuf for the next purchase, and then actually converted and then purchased that brand again. So it's not just spray and pray, cans and hands, upper funnel awareness, but people are going back and then actually buying the product once they're sampling it, which is the end goal for a lot of advertisers and brands. So this, in practice, is the sampling user flow. It starts when a customer, so an authenticated, signed-in Gopuf customer, places an order through the app. That product is then placed in the bag within the contents of the other items that they've purchased with their on Gopuf. That product is also placed in the bag with an insert, a co-branded insert. This example has Pepsi Mango here, one of our brand partners. There was also an in-app component where we're alerting customers that a sample is available to them so that they're not sort of confused as to why this additional item was added to their bag. Then, of course, they receive their order, they open it, ideally try the product. And then we have targeted campaigns. We have in-app messaging that basically are essentially driving purchases the next time that someone opens up the app. So you're going from a digital impression or ordering on Gopuf to then it being delivered, you trying it in person, and then, again, digital again. We call this our closed-loop measurement system, driving conversions at the end of the day. And, oh, sorry, I'll note this before I go to the next slide. The call out that Hannah said is there's about 7 different internal teams that are working on these initiatives. You have our GoPup Marketing Solutions, or GMS teams, that actually have to sell this to our advertisers and communicate the value. You then have our operations teams that have to ensure that the samples get delivered to the right fulfillment center, which are within a 30-minute delivery window to customers. You have our studio team, our marketing team, that actually works with the brand to design the insert itself. You have our CRM team that works on flighting the in-app notification to customers who've received the purchase. You have our analytics teams that run the campaign report afterwards to report back to the brands. And then, of course, you have our product teams that are building these solutions, ensuring that it's getting packed efficiently, and ensuring that all the tech is sort of working in the back end on top of the consumer app as well. So again, we're at a product marketing summit here, so I wanted to call out specifically what product marketing did and how we integrate with both the sales cycle and then also just how we brought this to market. We took sort of a 3-pronged approach. There was the inbound, internal product comms, and then outbound. So as we look on the far left, we have our inbound. This was really, really trying to understand our customer and ensuring that not only are we just offering something from a high level that would be of value to partners, but that it was competitively positioned against their alternative models that they're using. So for sampling, we had a lot of feedback around how we're pricing it on a per sample basis. We had feedback on the number of products that we were distributing within one sampling campaign. You can imagine larger brands want to get a lot of products in front of customers as quickly as possible. And then we also had feedback about campaign flights. We're going up against and we're thinking about times where all of your samples or all of your products might be delivered within one day. So you can imagine it's a very different process as you're delivering it in tandem with a purchase through an app for a long amount of time. So all of this was packaged up, listened to within voice of customer sessions, and then, of course, given back to our product teams and our operations teams to ensure that we could launch an effective product that actually met advertiser needs. Along the process, product marketing was ensured, or we ensured that we gave detailed communications to our internal teams. So this was giving updates within sales teams meetings. This was owning email comms, owning Slack channels. What I say is like the day-to-day sort of grind of product marketing that is less flashy and less fun, but very necessary as you're bringing a very novel solution to market. And then, of course, the shiny, fun part in the end is the outbound, of course. Packaging case studies, one-sheeters, sales enablement, key stats about the industry, key reasons why a brand and advertiser would even want to engage with sampling. So all of this was going on sort of behind the scenes. I would say this is probably a 6-month process, at least just for the relaunch of the product. And it's iterative, of course, right? So we're always looking at new case studies, always looking for new opportunities to brand certain campaigns that we've worked on. And there's always inbound and outbound that's going on at any given moment for any product that you're working on. And how did it pay off? This is one example of a case study that we published with our partners Tums and Nexium last year. During the Super Bowl, a time when I personally am eating a lot of chips and unhealthy things and drinking alcohol, you're likely to have heartburn. You're likely to have stomach issues at that time. So we anticipated customer demand or anticipated customer needs that they would need something to relieve the gassy, not so good situation or feeling they'd be having, and delivered free sample size units of Tums and Nexium to Gopuf customers. So not only was this a great play, of course, like tapping into a cultural moment, giving away products at a very relevant time, but then we were also able, with our closed loop measurement system, to measure success. So the numbers on the bottom are the number of people who went back to the platform and purchased the Tums and Nexium products who were new to brand. So you can imagine a time where maybe you're ordering other products like soda or chips on Gopuf. You might not necessarily be thinking about sort of our pharmaceutical or other categories that we offer. So you're increasing product awareness, but then also driving conversions at the end of the day. So we were able to measure the impact or the incremental lift that our sampling campaign had on purchases afterwards. Not only was this valuable for brand partners, but we noticed that people started going to social media in order to speak about the great products that they were receiving from Gopuf. This is just an example of some real human testimonial quotes that we have here. My favorite one is the second one from the left. It's Gopuf is now my primary care doctor. I don't know if this is a good thing that someone is exclusively referring to Gopuf as their primary care doctor, but I think we're happy to fill a need here within the space. I wanted to take a moment to talk about some key learnings, and I'm going to let Hannah start first, talking about the top-down approach.
Yeah, so I think there's two things that we really learned from both just launching Gopuf ad solutions overall at Gopuf. So the one, and this is really going back to the idea of if you're doing something that's going to have the digital to physical component, really making sure that you're aligning those internal teams. I think something that we learned, and I think this is part of product marketing and very inherent that product marketers are often the people that are bringing sort of different teams together. I think this became even more important for us when we realized that it wasn't just trying to do the translation between our tech teams and our sales teams, but also that operational component. If you don't have the operations piece in there, the product just doesn't work. So really understanding that every team needed to be brought along on that journey and making sure that they all understood what it was I think a component that product marketing played a really big role in at Gopuf in particular. The second thing is to leverage your strengths. If we hadn't done that exercise of really thinking about brand partners as a customer as opposed to just another group of people that we worked with, we wouldn't have understood that there was an entire product offering that people wanted and that we could very easily meet and had the strengths to actually do. So just taking that time to really think about who your customers are. I mean, I think this is something that's sort of core to our jobs, but know who your customers are, and then really think about the value that you're delivering and how that can be positioned to bring something new or different to the marketplace.
Yeah, I put communicate the wins here. I think in larger companies and in organizations, there's always ways to communicate with teams internally. And it's really important as product marketers to lean into the existing channels that you have, whether that's team meetings, Slack threads, newsletters, and use that space, use that attention that's there to communicate core updates, but then also go-to-market initiatives for the products that you're working on. This was a consistent drumbeat that I think a lot of folks know that I've been talking about sampling for months before we even had a solution to market. But it made it really easy because it means that everyone knows what's going on. There's a lot of transparency about the changes, about updates, that you're listening to feedback. And it makes it so that you're not sort of in a silo trying to get adoption from your internal stakeholders. Specifically for us, it was sales. And then the last one here, listen and iterate, embracing feedback, pivot, pivot, pivot. I think it's very important to not only sit in the corner and do strategy and then launch a product like it's all done. You have to start integrating your internal teams in as early as possible, listening to product, understanding why you can't do what the feedback that your sales team is requesting is, having an articulate reason why you're not pursuing certain opportunities, and then once you're able to actually incorporate that feedback, explaining it, going to market, and then changing again. We've unlocked a lot of different sort of use cases and reasons why to do sampling in the future. You have now smaller advertisers. You have people who are trying to do targeting now within their campaigns as well. And we're happy to be able to incorporate a lot of feedback into the roadmap because of just listening to our teams. And as we look sort of into the future, we're so happy to bring the value of sampling to more GoPup customers in the future. So thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Good time for questions.
All right, yeah, it's working. Thank you so much, Hannah and Blue. I think we're going to do a little Q&A. If you could use QR code, and if you have it from yesterday, it's Slido, same app, or same web page, not app. So, I mean, I know I have a lot of questions. I guess I'll start with, what do you call, is it like ASAP? What's the category name for GoPuff?
So we call it instant commerce. I think this goes back to the should you make your own category or not make your own category.
Right.
But it is interesting, and I think this comes up particularly when we're doing, from a product marketing standpoint, when we're doing competitive analysis, in that it's really hard for us to really say exactly who our competitors are, because our competitors change a lot depending on the product offering that we're talking about. So one thing that we sort of developed on the product marketing side was a framework of what is the category you should be comparing to depending on the product offering that you're talking about. So for example, when we're talking to our core customers, I think one of the competitive categories I talked about was delivery services. When we're talking about our ad solutions, we will sort of break it out into how do we compare to other digital ad platforms, some of the traditional ones that you're probably thinking about. But then there's also the how do we compare specifically to retail media networks, and that's going to look very different. And what that means is going to depend a lot, and who we should focus on depends a lot on what that specific product is within that context.
Cool, yeah, I know, I'm familiar with Gorillas. They're like lighting up Brooklyn with ads. It's like crazy, but I haven't used them quite yet. I'll have to use GoPuff first. So let's jump into these questions. So first, you mentioned cross-functional collaboration. Does product marketing own this? And do you have any advice for engaging key stakeholders when working at pace?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I was the first product marketing hire in February of 2021 last year. And so I think there's a great question when it comes to who owns cross-functional relationships. The approach that I take, and that I think our team broadly takes, is not so much a clear stake in the ground of we own this so much as building those relationships and working with those teams. And as over time we've built those relationships with product and then with our, in this case, our sales stakeholders, it became very clear that both of those teams wanted us to own that relationship. So it was really more by demonstration and showing the value that we added when we were going across these teams that then led us to formalize a little bit later that we were sort of the owners of these different relationships. And this also looks very different for our different product marketing teams. So on the ad tech side, it is very much product marketing owns the relationships between product and sales, but our product marketing team that supports delivery platforms, so that's between our delivery partners, who are the people who essentially do the delivery, that the relationship looks very different, where operations plays a bigger role in those relationships. And so a little bit the way that I've approached it is every time we launch a new product marketing team, it's meet the stakeholders, understand the existing relationships, and then define what that cross-functional ownership looks like for every product area. And it's going to look different for every team.
Great. All right, I think we have time for one more, so I'll go to the top. I'd like to communicate more about launches internally, but our launch dates aren't reliable. Oh, familiar. How do you determine when it is the right time to communicate?
I love this question. I would say that this is definitely something that our team has thought a lot about. There's a couple things we do here. So one, I think from product marketing, what I try and do is make sure that we're consistent in our communication. And so what that means is we are always saying, if we are doing some sort of update. So actually, Robin from our team is here. So he owns the GoPup Ad Solutions update. It comes out every 2 weeks on the same day to all our internal teams. And that way, even if our product timelines are changing, even if product decisions are changing, our sales team knows that this communication is going to be consistent, and that's going to have that updates. So it's building consistency where you can, having as much transparent communication where you can, and then just trying to make sure that teams understand what's going on. And I found that when you are proactive about that, and especially when saying this is our target launch date, here are the variables that might lead to a change, here's how you can find out if that change happened, has been really helpful in sort of smoothing some of those expectations that you can have when you're sort of working across, a sales and a product team.
Great. Consistent, transparent, proactive.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Agreed. Alrighty.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Hannah and Blue.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Up next, super excited about this one. We're going to welcome Jamila Calhoun from Eventbrite. She's the global head of product marketing. She previously was at Audible, On Deck Capital, and American Express. She graduated from Yale and has a Harvard MBA, so damn, she's smart. And she's going to chat about the importance of PMMs in product-led growth companies, which is a fascinating topic. So welcome, Jamila.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much to Product Marketing Alliance for having me here today. I won't, sorry, oh, the clicker. Thank you. Make sure we get that technology up and going. Well, all that fluff, thank you for the wonderful introduction, Devin. But I am really excited to be here to speak to you guys about the roles that product marketers can really play in driving growth in product-led organizations. We know that, of course, product marketing has a strong presence and connection with our sales and marketing engines for growth. But one thing that I'm really passionate about is ensuring that product marketers continue to have a strong role to play when the engine of growth is really rooted in the product. So, first, I'll start off with a bit of introduction for myself. One piece that I always love to think about with product marketing is everyone's career path to this field looks entirely different. So I like to call myself a career shapeshifter. And though I have spent time in a few different organizations now, having led and built new product marketing teams at American Express, Audible, and now at Eventbrite, where I've recently joined, I actually started my career as a finance and consulting minion. So very much in a very different realm. But what I find so exciting is the fact that I bring some of those skill sets and perspectives to bear all the time, thinking strategically, thinking from a data-driven perspective, and really driving the KPIs in the business. So I really am passionate about forums like this that are really built to and help and equip different professionals with the tools needed to ultimately succeed in product marketing. So we'll go into that more, but of course I always think it's fun to do a little trip down memory lane. So question for the group here, and we'll just do it by raise of hands. Who believes that actually product marketing's role becomes larger in a product-led growth company versus a sales and marketing-led growth company? Okay. 50-50, we're seeing a few little waving hands like this. Well, hopefully by the end of this, we will absolutely start to ensure that all hands are raised by the end of this, that the role that product marketing plays, especially in product-led growth companies, is actually even more important. It's important everywhere, to be clear. But if your product colleagues just aren't really understanding exactly what product marketing does or exactly why you're kind of meant to be more involved in things like UX design, I'll explain why. All right. So first off, I want to take that step back as we think about what is ultimately the goal of product marketing, which is really to ensure that synergizing of product market fit. One aspect of this is that it's a little bit of a misnomer that we only call it product market fit. If your product and your market fit, but ultimately the business model you put behind it to monetize it doesn't align with the product or the customer you're ultimately trying to serve, or if you put this product into a channel where the customers don't actually exist, aren't relevant to them, then you haven't fully aligned the flywheel of growth. And so when I think of product market fit, it's truly in this four-way model across the product, the market, the model, and the channel. So what that means within a product-led growth company is that actually, number one, your channel is your product. And so here, again, you have the double importance of ensuring that the product experience fits your market because it is ultimately your channel as well. And so that alignment becomes even more important for product marketers to lean into and support their product management colleagues in achieving that cohesion. The second piece is that your monetization model must incentivize the product behaviors that you're wanting. So for example, if you're thinking about a company that wants to incentivize binging behavior like we all do with Netflix, a rental model for monetization is going to disrupt and add friction to a binging behavior. So you want to ensure that if you're primarily monetizing and growing through your product, which is ultimately your channel, that the monetization you put against it is going to not only kind of course, make money for the business, but think about the long-term behaviors of the customer lifecycle you're trying to create and ultimately help that along. So I always lastly like to point to this Peter Drucker quote, is really to know and understand our customers so well that the product sells itself. And that's exactly the goal of the product-led growth company. The product selling itself because it's so intuitive and serves such a key need and solves a problem that customers really value. All right, so now what that leads to is, well, what role does product marketing play in this ecosystem? There are a few different aspects that shift when you're in a product-led organization. One piece is the interaction model between the various cross-functional stakeholders. Another piece is what are your primary communication channels and outbound strategies for your growth. So we'll get to that next, but let's start on the organization piece. Naturally, we want to ensure in any organization that there's that super close alignment and partnership between product management and product marketing. In traditional sales and marketing growth companies, product marketing really serves as that interfacing layer that communicates to the sales and marketing organizations. And so you kind of see a more linear product development cycle where upfront product management's really leaning in with some support from product marketing. And as things kind of go more into go-to-market, you start to see product marketing playing that role with the outbound teams. In a product-led organization, which I've put in the very simple diagram on the right, you really have to have that close alignment at the very top of the product development cycle between product management and product marketing. That's because ultimately you have to make sure that the sales strategy is ultimately the product strategy. And so in organizations that I've been in where it is product-led, I always go in to ensure at the very top that it is understood that there's a one-to-one relationship between product management and product marketing. Ideally, one of the ways that we help to reinforce this, we all know that our product managers are always working closely with their engineers on product requirements documents. Well, one tool that I use to ensure this alignment is actually what I call a market requirements document. This document is meant to articulate for the product what are the customers and the requirements ultimately in order to successfully introduce this product into the market, successfully commercialize this product into the market. And so this document helps to articulate things like what is that potential monetization model? What is that competitive landscape? And we use that to kind of a mirror document for the product requirements document to drive the product development cycle. And so that close alignment at the very top becomes absolutely central. So the next piece is really how do you start to manifest the strategy in front of customers? And here's where I bring in other stakeholders, such as UX design, UX research, as critical to the eventual development of an experience that's going to drive the type of growth that the company wants. And here, building a direct connection and more specific collaboration with those teams, UX design, marketing, and sales, ensures that the messaging in product, the positioning in product, and positioning sometimes literally physically on a page, aligns with the positioning that you ultimately see as important for growth relative to your competition and relative to the needs of the customers. So I alluded to this earlier. The other piece that shifts a bit when you're in a product-led organization is this aspect of how you ultimately shape your communications. And there's two types here. One is your primary communications channels that are primarily focused on conversion. And then there's other channels that are focused on reinforcement, lifecycle engagement, and other areas of user usage rates that you want to incentivize. So in terms of the traditional marketing-led organization, we know that sales and performance marketing are key areas for driving conversion. For product-led organizations, performance marketing definitely has a role to play here on just getting people onto your surfaces. But the second piece that often is underappreciated is the importance of brand marketing. If you don't have that high-touch relationship with the customer to establish what your values are and what you stand for through a sales conversation, you need to be able to communicate those values at scale. So the role that brand marketing plays also elevates. But this last piece is where product-led organizations really, really hone in and focus, which is focusing on that very specific acquisition and onboarding journey that's going to help shepherd customers into your experience in a seamless and frictionless way. And those are the primary ways that you can drive conversion in these environments. Now, other things become a bit more secondary that are more focused, again, on driving high usage and lifecycle management. So here's where some high-touch customers may engage with the sales team, or you may have a customer success team that's ultimately focused on certain high-value customers. And of course, lifecycle marketing and other in-product notifications and pop-ups are also really important for reinforcement as well. So one of the things that I always think about when in these types of organizations are what are the surfaces within the product that we can leverage to market things to our customers. And that's your notification centers, the interstitial pop-ups that really sometimes annoy you and you quickly swipe away as you open a new app. But those are absolutely critical surfaces for a product marketer to keep an eye on, to own, and really ensure that the messaging comes to life on. All right, so more specifically now on like, what do we do day to day? And so on the teams that I'm leading, here are the 4 key areas that we help support our product management team and business on. Now, of course, you guys all know that every single one of your organization's product marketing teams looks slightly different, engages and spikes on slightly different areas of the skill set. But for me, here are the 4 key areas that I think are absolutely crucial. Number 1 is on messaging. Of course, this is the hallmark of everything that we do as product marketers. But as I mentioned, one of the key factors in this type of organization is the fact that a lot of the messaging has to occur in products. So you're spending a lot of time thinking about how do we really make these CTAs even tighter within the product? How do we describe features with fewer characters than you normally get if you're mostly doing messaging through a talk sheet for your sales team, or you're normally doing messaging through emails to customers? You have a lot less space to do it. And so this messaging work becomes all the more important because it has to get really tight and really specific. The second piece that I really focus on is personalization. So there's a huge role for product marketers to play in helping product owners understand the shape of the landscape as far as customer segmentations are concerned, and not just knowing what the segments are, but prioritizing which ones we want to serve and what matters to them at particular points in the journey. And so I think as customers and companies push more and more for personalization in their experiences and in the way that they're spoken to, in the way that they are kind of brought into the journey, there's a role for product marketing to play in ensuring that that language is disseminated throughout the organization. The next piece, of course, is monetization. I spoke earlier about the importance of ensuring that the business model aligns with the customer's expectations, willingness to pay, and their use cases. And that way, because product marketers have that close alignment with the segmentation, with understanding the customers and the competitive landscape, this is an area that product marketers can definitely lean into and have a very clear perspective to add. The last piece is around the journey coordination. So again, in-product messaging and marketing becomes incredibly important. But what sometimes can happen is the in-product messaging is being shaped through product management, UX design, and then the marketing teams separately are thinking through the off-product marketing, the emails, the sales talking points, et cetera. And you can start to see some disconnects between the language that's being used in product and those off-product touch points. So it's a key role that product marketing can play at the center of these teams to ensure that there is a coherent and cohesive language that's being used both in product and off product. All right. So we're going to go into a quick case study of a situation that I faced at Audible where we were basically trying to ensure growth for a new all-you-can-eat version of their media streaming service. So previously, Audible had a model that focused on a book a month, if you will. And we introduced a newer all-you-can-eat tier of service that was at a lower price point, didn't have the full content catalog available. At the initial launch, the number of new customers were underperforming the ultimate goals of what the company really wanted to achieve here. So I know we're tight on time. I know you guys all know what matters to customers in their various purchase journeys. So I won't quiz you guys now. But I thought this provided a great example of the way that personalization and segmentation can come to life in building acquisition journeys that drive growth. All right, so one of the key unlocks that product marketing was able to build into this process was the need for a multidimensional segmentation. Many companies have gone through segmentation exercises and oftentimes will default to one of these 3 or 4, if you count the middle bucket, lenses for understanding their customers. So at Audible, of course, you can imagine people love to read all kinds of different books. And so the what here is how customers' tastes differ. So are they a fiction reader? Are they a nonfiction reader primarily? Is it fantasy, sci-fi, etc.? But what we learned in introducing another tier of service was that there were other factors that really started to be important in the way we needed to talk to customers and incentivize them to see themselves using our service. So the other ones were, one, on the why. How do customers' consideration sets differ? So for example, if we have 2 tiers of service at different price points and at different usage models, one a book a month and another one at an all-you-can-eat, it really speaks to more of their psychographics. Are they someone who, in general, doesn't like to be limited? Just wants the all-you-can-eat. Like, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to select the one book every month. That means I have to optimize for what's really worth it this month, right? That's too much thinking for me. So that's a different type of customer. For others, it's all about willingness to pay. Like more than $5, no thanks. And so we had to bring that lens into our work here in understanding how to shape the acquisition journey. And the other piece is when and how much people want to consume. Again, on the binge behavior that certain customers display versus I have a once a month book club and I'm just gonna really need to get one book a month in order to make sure that I'm not the person at book club who didn't do the reading. I know that's none of you guys. And so, of course, use cases differ. And what we found is that occasions played a huge role in this. For some people, they're really looking for an escape at the end of the day. For others, it's that inspiration in the beginning of the day when you open up your podcast or your really inspirational business book, all about product marketing, I'm sure, and you want to start your day on the right foot. And so the last piece, of course, is behaviors and demographics. Oftentimes at tech companies, it's a little bit uncomfortable to think about the roles that demographics play in our businesses. But absolutely, in order to show relevance, this was an important lens that we wanted to bring into our exercise as well. And so what happened when we ultimately used this framework to drive our strategy? Number one, we ended up understanding that we had a two-part acquisition journey. One, we had to acquire people into the service, and two, we had to show people the specific book that they wanted to listen to and get them to convert into listening to that book. So that's two different strategies that we needed to ultimately ensure that our acquisition journey was built for. Selling them the subscription and selling them their first listen. The next piece was, again, this tiered pricing model, understanding that customers had different willingness to pay and had different kind of behavioral orientations and use cases for how they were going to engage with our service. The third piece was more customizable acquisition journey. So we started to build in more user-driven acquisition where they could do a quick quiz on, hey, are you a morning listener? Are you an evening listener? That way we could actually gather more information about the customer in the acquisition journey that would help us more clearly suggest to them, one, the right plan for them, and two, again, that right first listen. So how do we embed more intelligence into the process so that people can really be directed in a direction that feels more personalized to them? The fourth piece is we added more occasion-based product discovery into our discovery landing page, as well as on our acquisition journey, our acquisition page, we added swipeable features that allowed us to showcase content relevant to different parts of the day. This was a key insight that really allowed us to start to contextualize our books and listening so that people could see themselves using the product and ultimately saying, yeah, this is a worthwhile investment for me. The last piece is, of course, understanding the role that, again, how customers consider their decisions. Some were really driven by social proof, and some people really see their reading behaviors as being really private, really niche, like I want to find that unique read that no one else is talking about. And others were like, I want the Oprah Book Club. And so we built our discovery as well as elements on our acquisition pages to bring these to bear. And it's fun if you guys have time later, pull up the audible.com mobile on your mobile browser and you can see our new experience, which really elevates, again, the importance of the content, contextualizing the content, but also giving people more information so that they can make informed decisions about the right model for them. So, to recap, product-led growth companies require even tighter alignment between all four areas of product market fit, including the model and the channel that you ultimately put against your product and market. Second, the product marketing team plays a crucial role in ensuring cohesive communications in and off products. And so that's a really crucial opportunity to build more relationships cross-functionally with multiple different stakeholders, including UX design, product, sales, and marketing. And lastly, in-depth customer segmentation can be used, number one, to make a more robust acquisition journey, but also to inform the core product development, especially if you're looking at how people ultimately discover and use multiple different features within your product experience. So I hope this was a helpful view on how product marketers are ready to take on the product-led growth challenge. And I'm excited for your questions here. It looks like we've got a good slate.
Thank you, Jamila. So it seems to me like product-led growth companies, if you're a product marketer, you get to work on all the great strategic stuff and you don't have to deal with all the bad stuff. So fantastic. We got a lot of questions. We have a couple I think 4 minutes or so let's jump right in. Can any company become product-led? What if the product is very complex and always needs sales to speak to it?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think, again, if we think about acquisition in multiple parts, one is just purely the conversion to understanding, does the person have a need for this? And does the person have this problem to solve? If you have a very complex product, at times that conversation can be very nuanced, has to be very specific to the customer situation. And so I think at times at the very top of the funnel, there are companies that make more sense to have a more high-touch acquisition strategy. However, you also have to think about, like I mentioned, not just the acquisition at the very top, but that ongoing adoption and usage. So one, if you introduce new features to the product, you may want for the existing customers to be able to adopt that new feature in product. So you can have product-led growth strategies within your experience and dealing with your customer base at large, even while the very top of the funnel might still need a more high-touch conversation. So you want to kind of ensure that the sales team are able to spend more of their time having those conversations than ultimately having to sell in every single new feature, every new capability that comes out. And so having the skill set of building more product-led adoption strategies will be helpful to any organization.
Makes sense. All right. What was up on the top, now it's on number 2. I'm going to pick that one because I like this one. Should product management complete both the PRD and MRD, so product requirement doc, marketing requirement doc? Is there any overlap between the two? I think this is interesting because you showed that in your model, it's not linear, so that product management and product marketing sort of sit side by side. So I'd imagine there's some tension over ownership on something.
Yeah. So I think that one area to resolve some of that tension, and actually that the person kind of mentioned in the question, is oftentimes embedding some strategic overlap between the two documents. But ideally, the way that I usually structure it is that the product management team owns the product PRD, product requirements document, and product marketing owns the MRD. But there are certain sections of those two documents that are overlapping to ensure that both teams are on the same page about the most important and critical components of the strategy. So things like the customer, target customer, you should have that in both documents. But the MRD is going to go a little bit deeper into detail on it. And so you want to ensure that it's within the PRD so that, of course, product managers have a clear understanding of their customer, that they feel ownership over being just as customer obsessed as we are. So that's one of the ways to kind of resolve some of that tension, but I do believe that it's helpful to have product marketers really own the MRD.
Yeah, agreed. And then just a little overlap, I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right, last one. We only have a minute left. In your opinion, what's the ideal PM to PMM ratio headcount?
Yeah.
It's a product in a product-led specifically growth.
Is someone watching from my HR team? No. So this is always a tricky conversation. And I've come in and, like I said, built PMM teams from scratch. So I've come into orgs where we're starting at a 10-to-1 ratio. I can tell you now that is not ideal. So I usually find that the biggest unlocks tend to happen when you're at about 2 to 3 to 1. If you're in a really large organization and can get to 1-to-1, that's amazing. But often I find that the kind of level of change and the level of granularity that we want to have as PMM is really to think at a more portfolio level. So I do think that, having 2 to 3 to a portfolio of products against 3 product management products makes a lot of sense. So that's usually the area that I feel the most comfortable. Not there yet. Plenty of roles posted at Eventbrite, by the way, to get us to this ratio. So definitely know that this is always something top of mind, and I appreciate the question.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jamila. Everyone give her a hand.
All right.
All righty. Thank you. Great job. So up next, I mentioned her in my opener because she's a proof point that product marketing has arrived. Super excited to bring up Tamara Graminsky, Chief Strategy Officer at Unbounce. Previously, Tamara was at Yellow Pages, FreshBooks, and while at Unbounce, has been promoted into the C-suite. She's going to come up and discuss how you can identify and multiply your best customers. Give her a hand.
Thanks so much. Perfect. Okay. This one?
Yes. Yep.
Thank you so much for the welcome. That was amazing. So great to be back here. I was actually at the first Product Marketing Summit conference in New York 3 years ago this month. So amazing to be back and in person. And I think this was the perfect session to follow the last session. We talked a lot in that last session about the importance of customer segmentation. And now I'm going to chat with you about how you can actually build a segmentation practice as a product marketer. I have built a landing page. If you want access to any of my slides or content or material afterwards, feel free to check out the bit.ly and I'll share it throughout the presentation. Before I get started, I'd love everyone to raise their hand. We'll get a little bit of movement going on. I'm going to ask a question. So if everyone can put their hand up in the air, everyone, please. All right, keep your hand up in the air if you can name your company's best customer segments. Okay, most hands are showing up. This is a room of product marketers, so I would expect that. What if I asked 10 of your colleagues and everyone was in a different department? Keep your hand up if every single person would still give the same answer. Okay, yeah. What if I asked 50 people at your company? Would I get the same answer? Okay, a few of you are doing a really great job at educating. For most people, the hands start to drop at 10, sometimes outside of the product marketing team. We see that very few companies spend enough time on customer segmentation. And the result is that everyone thinks that they're targeting a slightly different customer. And every team thinks they're doing an amazing job, right? And each team is hitting their goals, but they're not moving in the same direction. They're not aligning vectors. And so we get something that looks like this, right? The marketing team's building this amazing piece of collateral for a customer. The product team is building a feature for a slightly different customer. And the sales team is out there pitching something that doesn't even exist. And so really, this is creating a lot of confusion and tension internally. And we also know that customers can feel this pain as well. 71% of customers say that they express frustration when something is not personalized and relevant. We talked about personalization and the importance of it in the last 2 presentations, right? We also see that 80% of customers say that the experience that a company provides is just as important as its product or service. So you can have a better product than your competitor, but if you're not delivering an experience that feels personalized to them as a customer segment, they might still move on. And when they do choose to move on, 64% of the time when they churn, they're actually churning because of a lack of relevance. Again, not because of the product itself. And so we all know that customer segmentation is important. And so with customer segmentation, we can really focus in on who your best customers are, build momentum and alignment across the org, and then start to deliver products and experiences that will acquire them, engage them, and retain them. And so today I want to walk you through a super tangible practice that you can bring back into your own organization starting today. And it's a 3-step process to being able to build growth-focused segmentation. First, we're going to walk through how you can identify your best customers or your target customer segments. Then we're going to build segment profiles. And then finally, we're going to take those segment profiles and convert them into really high-converting go-to-market. So let's start with step 1, identifying your best customers. So identifying your best customers or focusing on customer segmentation could be a subjective exercise, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a bunch of people sitting around a table with personal opinions or biases. We're going to take a really data-backed approach to customer segmentation. And I want to walk you through something called the MAP framework. It's a 3-step process, and it starts with measuring volume. So you want to take a look at your entire customer base, historically and currently. And this could be if you're a SaaS business, your subscriber base, or if you're a physical product business or a one-off purchase product, just anyone that's ever purchased from you. We want to start to identify trends amongst all of those customers and really start to cluster them together. After we understand what those main clusters are, we want to start to analyze the performance of those to see which clusters of customers are driving better business value and which ones are actually performing worse than the average customer. And then finally, we want to look externally to understand if you were to prioritize this customer segment, would you have a chance of winning the market? So we'll deep dive into each of these. And now, because this is not a subjective exercise, it's an objective data-backed one, the most important thing to do is to start with a data sheet, right? So you're probably not going to have the perfect spreadsheet or the perfect data set available for you. And so you're going to want to work with your data team or maybe someone on your team who's a bit more technical who can help you join all of the different data tables that are available. And here you want to understand as much information about the customer as possible. So some businesses, if you're a startup and you've maybe been around for a couple months or you only have 50 customers, you might not have a lot of information. If you've been around for years and you're in more of like a PLG self-serve model and you have hundreds of thousands of customers, you're going to have a wealth of data. What's important is that you're aggregating all of the data that you have on a customer in place and you're merging it with something that I call account data. And so I've just put up this chart here just to show a couple different types of information that you're looking for in each of these categories. And so we're thinking about things like demographic data, geographic, firmographic. But this account data is really important. And account data is really that unique identifier for each of your customers. This is what's going to allow you to kind of track what's important across all of these different buckets of data. And so again, if you're a SaaS product, this could be their subscription, whether it's the subscription length, what they're paying, the start date or end date if they've churned. And really, this is going to allow you to understand the business value that each of these customer segments are bringing. And so once you have all this information together, honestly, it's as simple as just using like an Excel spreadsheet, pulling some pivots, and starting to do some data exploration. And so I want to give you a little bit of a word of warning because a lot of people will do this exercise, they'll be digging in, and they'll be like, aha, I have a lot of dentists, and that must be our best vertical that we want to focus on. But you can't just turn up the volume, as I say. So your largest group of customers are not always your best customers. And this is why it's really important that we go through the entire process to validate the business performance as well. And so before we move on to that next stage, you want to prepare something that I call like a segment hypothesis. So after you've looked at all of those different trends, you want to come up with what you think could be your best customers. Here, you're probably identifying 3 to 5 different segments that you want to continue to do more research on. Which takes us into the next step, which is validating performance. And so here, we want to take those clusters of customers and we want to start to assess which ones are performing as good as or better than your average customer. And how you do this is going to depend on this type of business that you're at, right? You're going to have different metrics or what better might mean. For me, these are the metrics that are really important in my business. And so when we went through our customer segmentation exercise, we started by looking at conversion rate. Were these segments that we identified more or less likely to convert into paying customers? We also looked at average revenue per user. So were these segments likely to buy a higher package, or were they all in our lowest package? Were we able to expand those customer segments over their life cycle? And how sticky were they? Were they surviving a really long time, or were they churning out right away? And then finally, how valuable were they to our business? So what was the overall lifetime value throughout their whole time with us? And And so after you've done this step, you're going to start to see a few trends arise. So let's say you started with 5 different segments in your hypothesis. You're probably going to see 2 or 3 of them are actually performing really well. So you have a lot of them, and they're performing better than the average customer. And maybe 1 or 2 of them are actually, just okay. Or surprisingly, they're performing worse than the average customer. And so you're going to continue to refine your hypothesis before you move into the next stage. And so now that we've looked inwardly, we want to face outwardly, and we want to say, if we were to choose to focus on this customer segment, would we be able to win the market? Or what would it take for us to win the market? And there's a couple different ways you can think about this. I kind of slice them these 3 ways. The first one is addressable market. So if you focus on this customer segment, what's the size of the market? And is that market large enough to sustain your growth ambitions, right? And so you want to look at things like total addressable market, but also market penetration. Is there still room in that market for market share to be eaten up? We also want to look at customer acquisition, so both the channels and how scalable those are, as well as the acquisition cost itself. So are there scalable channels that are bringing in these customer segments today? And if you just put more time or resources or money behind it, you'd be able to quickly get in more customers. Or are you going to have to do channel discovery and experimentation as part of your go-to-market? And then finally, competitive landscape. If you are prioritizing these customers, what about your competitors? Are they also prioritizing those customers? Or are they kind of saying, that's not for me? If their answer is that they are prioritizing those customers, that's okay. It doesn't mean you can't go after them. It just means you're going to have a different competitive strategy when you're doing so. And so hopefully by this point, you're starting to refine everything together and really end up with a few segments, hopefully 1 to 3, that you feel really clear on, that you can confirm you're attracting a lot of, and you have a lot of in your customer base, that they have a really great performance, they actually perform better than the average customer, and are markets that will support your growth ambition. And so once we know what your customer segments are, we want to get a better understanding of who they are, like who is the customer behind this kind of description of the segment. And this is where segment profiles come in. And this concept is really important because we talk about the importance of segments. So we talk about why that business performance matters. And here it all goes back to this idea of ratios. And so if out of this you've identified 3 segments and you say, oh, they actually make up about 30% of my customer base, and we know that that 30% is performing better than the 70% of non-segmented customers, what we want to do is we want to crank up that 30%, right? We want to get to that 30% to be 70% of your customer base and start to decrease the non-segmented lower value customers. And in order to do that, we need to really focus on customer value. We need to understand what those customers want, what they find valuable, how your product can deliver that value, and how much they're willing to pay for that value. And so I'm sure every single person in this room has built a buyer persona before. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a segment profile, which is more of like a quantified buyer persona. So it focuses less on things like the job title of your segment or, what their favorite channels are. And it focuses more on this like business value that you're going to use to build your go-to-market. And so I'm going to walk you through how we can start to put this segment profile together. The first one is we want to take a look at the jobs to be done, the pains, and the gains of each of your segments. This is a framework from Strategizers, Value Proposition Design. Love it. It's a great segment framework to use. And so we'll start with jobs to be done. When you're going out and you're doing your jobs to be done research, probably via customer interviews, you're going to discover that you might find 3 different types of jobs. You could find functional jobs, social jobs, personal jobs. And a job is really that thing that your customer is hiring your product to do for them. And so if I give an example using Unbounce is a landing page builder. If someone was coming in with a functional job, they might just say, hey, I just want to get a campaign live. All I need to do is publish a landing page. But they might also have a social job. If they're an agency, maybe they really want to build a landing page that will impress their client. That will then get them more business. Or a more personal, emotional job, maybe they want to learn a new skill. And that's actually why they're starting to build a landing page or learn a new piece of technology. You're going to uncover a bunch of different jobs while you're doing this research, and you're going to have to figure out which job is the most important for your customer. And then we have pains and gains. Pains are essentially something that happens when someone's trying to complete their job. So maybe it's going to cost a lot of money for them to get that job completed, or it's going to take a lot of time for them to get that job completed. And your product can help make those pains better. Or we have gains, and these are positive outcomes that will happen as those jobs are completed. Some gains have to be completed in order for them to stick with your product, while others are just kind of nice to have or desirable. And so once you understand the value that your customer segments are looking for, we need to be able to match how your product delivers that value. And this is where feature preference comes in. And so your product probably has a bunch of different functionality, but not every customer segment is going to use it in the same way or want the same things. And so we want to understand what they do want and what they will use. And this is where a lot of people go wrong. So I'm sure we've all seen this as well. You get a survey and it's like, here are my 9 features. Which ones do you prefer? And it's like, rank them from 1 to 9. You're going to get a chart that looks something like this. And I don't know about you, but I cannot tell the difference between how much someone prefers feature 9 and feature 1. And so how you ask the question is sometimes just as important as who you ask. And this is why I always recommend trade-off feature preference, also known as max differential. And here, it's the exact same 9 features, but this time you're going to ask the question a different way. You're going to say, please tell me your most preferred feature and your least preferred feature. So they just have to select 2 things. And you're going to get back a chart that looks like this. So it's the exact same 9 features as the first chart, but we can see that for this customer segment, they highly prefer those first 4 features. And not only do they prefer those and not prefer the bottom, but the bottom 5 features are actually detractor features. They don't want them at all. And by even talking about them or giving them to your customer, you could be taking away from the value rather than adding to the value. And so now that we understand the value that they're looking for and how your product delivers that value, we want to understand for each customer segment how much they're willing to pay for that value. And now again, you could go and you could ask them, you could say, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, how much would you pay for this product? And they're going to give you a completely lowball answer because everyone wants a deal. And so again, I have a recommendation for you, and this time it's a really simple survey you can do. It's called the Van Westendorp. And the Van Westendorp is a price sensitivity survey that consists of 4 questions. You do not need a data team to do this survey. You can do it all on your own. The first question is, at what price would you consider this product to be so expensive that you would never consider buying it? At what price would it be getting expensive, but you would still buy? At what price would it be a bargain and a great deal? And at what price would it be so cheap that you would actually question the quality of the product? And you're going to get a chart that looks something like this. And this gray bar here is called the optimal price range. And this is the price that you want to put on your product for each of your customer segments. If you go on the lower end of the gray bar, you're going to probably have a slightly lower ARPU, but a higher conversion rate, higher sales volume. If you go higher end on the price point, you're going to have a higher ARPU, but maybe trade off on lower sales. This is a decision you can make as a business. And now it's important to mention you need to do this for every single customer segment. You can't just do an amalgamation for all 3 of those segments all together. You want to understand for each of your segments what they're willing to pay. So now you can put all of this information back into your segment profile, and you're starting to have a really great piece of resource that you can share with all of your stakeholders internally to keep everyone focused on the most important things for your segment. But of course, we also need to wrap it up into something that we're going to be able to communicate that value to customers. So this is our messaging and positioning. And again, we really want to focus on segmented value propositions here. You're definitely going to have a high-level value proposition for your product, and we're not asking you to change that, but we're asking you to go really detailed into what the value proposition is for each of your segments. You can use the PMA's messaging and positioning framework if you like. I find it to be a really great one, but it actually doesn't really matter what you're using as long as you're creating something that everyone can align to. And again, the most important thing is we're not just taking all 3 of those segments and amalgamating it here, right? We're building one of these documents for each and every segment. And then we're distributing this and using this as the blueprint for all of our go-to-market. So now that we understand who our best customers are, we know what the value is, how much they're willing to pay for that value, we want to actually convert that into go-to-market that's going to help you acquire more of them and retain them. And so when we think about all of these different customer segments, we think about them taking really unique and personalized journeys. And so I want you to put yourself in the shoes of your customer and actually go on that customer journey from their lens. And as you go through that customer journey, I want you to start to notice whether your experience is personalized, relevant, and positive, or if it's a bit general, a bit generic, and actually a negative experience. And you can start to say, hey, yep, this is an area I need to refine. Oh, this area we're doing a little bit better in. And this is going to give you a starting point to actually start to apply segmentation across the entire customer journey. I'm going to walk you through a couple quick examples of how other brands have applied this before we wrap up. So the first one is Lessonly. I'm a huge fan of Lessonly and their go-to-market. And what they've done here is they've built amazing buying flows across their website in a completely segmented way. So as soon as you come to their website and you go to the main navigation, they clearly call out Lessonly for. Like, it could not be any more simple. And they have the list of their segments. And so if you are one of those segments, you immediately know you're in the right place and you know where to click. And if you happen to click on one of those, you're going to be taken to a page that looks something like this. And so if I was a talent team and I clicked on the talent team in the drop-down, or I was a sales team and I clicked on sales team, I would come to one of these different pages. You can notice that the pages look almost identical, except for the picture, but the value propositions, the language, and the message is completely different. And again, they're selling the exact same product to two different customer segments and using different language to do that, because they've taken the time to understand what matters. And if I'm interested in this product and I want to go and do a tour or a demo, again, I can self-select the segment that I'm a part of, and that demo is going to be completely customized for me. And so here I said, hey, I'm a sales team, and as I jump into the demo, you can see that again, they're calling out who I am, so they're making me feel like I am still in the same place, and they're highlighting the pains and gains that I'm looking for. I want to talk a little bit about how we did this at Unbounce. So we went through this exact exercise at Unbounce, and out of that, we came up with 3 core customer segments at the time. And our number one priority was to make sure that when those customer segments landed on our website, they had an immediate sense of belonging. And so we also did what Lessonly did, which is in our dropdown, we just highlighted all 3 of our customer segments. So for us at the time, it was e-commerce businesses, SaaS businesses, and agencies. If you scroll lower down our homepage, we also had a whole section that went into depth on each of these segments. And this again was where we incorporated what I call voice of customer, right? So we spent a lot of time sitting with these customers, understanding how they describe themselves. How would they use their own language to talk about their pains and gains and jobs and how Unbounce could help them. And we incorporated that in a really nuanced way. And then we took it a step further, and we know that our prospects and our customers really come to us for educational content. And so we actually segmented our resource section as well. And so all of our content, we have a bunch of different categories you can search through based on type of content or topic. But if you see in the category list there, we actually put our 3 segments as our top 3 categories, because we wanted to make it abundantly clear to them that they were our priority and that it was super easy for them to find things when they came to our resource section. There's tons of brands who are doing this. These are just a couple examples, so you can start to get creative about how you might apply your segmentation. Just about to wrap up, and I'll take some questions, but before we do, I want to kind of cover what we covered today. First, we looked at mapping your best customers so that you could figure out who you wanted to focus on. Then we took a deeper dive to understand the value that those customers are looking for. And then finally, we applied all of that knowledge, hopefully in a really cross-functional way, everyone building momentum to deliver that high-converting go-to-market. Thank you so much. If you want access to any of the slides or templates, you can go to bit.ly/mapframework. And if you want to know more about customer segmentation, I encourage you to check out the segmentation masterclass that I've built with the Product Marketing Alliance. It's about 4 hours of me talking about this. My name is Tamara Gromitsky. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Unbounce, and I'm really pleased to be here today. Thanks.
Thank you, Tamara. Stay on for a bit. I think we're going to have some questions for Q&A. That was an amazing session. I almost feel like you're giving away trade secrets. So that link that you had up there, that has everything there?
Not everything, but it has a lot of stuff.
Awesome. Well,
and then everything is in the course. So if you really want everything, then you can take that.
Great. Thanks for doing that. One thing I noticed, you spell go-to-market with a 2.
Yes.
I like that. So I'm going to start doing that.
Well, GTM sometimes could be like Google Tag Manager. And so then I'm like, right? Anyways.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Creating a trend. All right. So let's jump into the Q&A. How do you advocate to make time for a robust segmentation exercise if you're at a high-growth, product-led company and the primary goal is currently acquisition? This is a good one. I feel like so many companies don't actually go through the exercise of segmentation because it's a lot of work.
Totally, yeah. So great question. Segmentation is actually just like fully baked into the product marketing team, so it makes it a lot easier for us moving forward. So I have one person on my team whose job is just like segmentation and pricing and packaging. I kind of think of them as the same thing. But when I started out, especially at Unbounce, and I was building the segmentation practice for us, it was a lot of upfront work because it had not been done. We were a high growth product led company though, and at the time we were focused on acquisition. So I think it is a good blend because when you think about segmentation, if you want to think about how you can get people to buy into it, think about it more than just like your customer base. And that's why I was talking a little bit about building that data set that kind of spans the broadest route, right? So if you look, hey, we want to take any information we have about anyone, like even if they just signed up for a trial, then that actually is going to funnel into your acquisition strategy and help you way more than if you didn't have customer segmentation. And like the process I walked through today is a pretty scrappy process. You could do it easily in 1 quarter or less with just you and one other person, right? You can layer in more in-depth segmentation as you go, but it's not meant to be this like large multi-quarter project. So hopefully you can start to get some learnings out of it really quick, and then people will feel bought in, and you can keep to investing and maybe even get a whole role.
And just get started.
Exactly, get started.
All right, so this is a good one. How do you distinguish between segment profiles and personas? Can you create a segmentation based upon different persona profiles? I feel like there's confusion oftentimes around ICP versus personas. I've noticed it myself.
Yeah. I think of personas as like a type of person, obviously. And often when you see a persona, it's like they have a name, they have a job title, they have like a channel that they can be reached on, they have these personal preferences, and it's like a fictionalization of a segment. Whereas I think the point I'm trying to get across with this idea of segment or customer segmentation is that it's actually about a broader market, and every person in that market is unique, right? And so I think personas actually do us an injustice because they assume that everyone in a market or a segment is the same and can fit into this one little page. And I disagree with that. And so I actually stay away from building personas entirely. I think there's a time and a place for them, but as a business practice, I don't focus on them. And I just do segments, and I think about what does this segment have in common, and then how do we build go-to-market that is highly relevant to them so that we're actually delivering like a one-to-one experience at scale.
Wow, hot take, no personas. I like that.
Personas are dead.
All right, so another one that I've come up against personally. How do you segment effectively when you don't have the right account data? This is, I feel like, a challenge for everyone. Also, data freshness, whether it's accurate. Company makes acquisitions, it's sitting in different places. So yeah, how do you handle that?
One of the things I hear the most is like, well, I have too much data, or I don't have enough data, so I can't get started. That's what I tried to point out earlier. Like, just start with the data you have that you trust. If that's only 4 data points, that's okay. You can find other ways to layer in data. And so in the past, when I haven't had a lot of data, I've actually augmented with like Clearbit to just fill in the gaps of things I didn't know. So I didn't have a lot of like industry data or vertical data when I first started doing my segmentation. And so Clearbit was able to fill in all of that for me. And then I went back and I said, well, now I know this is an important piece of information I need to collect, so I'm gonna add it to the sign-up survey. So now every net new customer that comes in, I will be able to collect their industry. And so if you don't get started with the information you have, you won't be able to identify the information you're missing. So that's the first thing. And I would say, yeah, like from a fidelity perspective or quality, like just include the data that you trust and exclude the data that you don't. And it's better to have less but more high quality than more that you don't trust.
Great. All right, we have time for one more. There's been a swap here on the bottom a couple times. So let's see, can you share more about this data team? Who are they? How do I convince the boss to hire them?
Okay, great. So we have a data team at Unbounce. It's really just a team that works to do our business health metrics, but also when we're going to market, help us build like our dashboards in Tableau or do data exploration. However, I would say the best thing I've ever done on any product marketing team I've built is hire a data-focused product marketing team. And so I actually do like a really data-heavy case study when I hire for my team, where I give them like a raw Excel sheet. And that's the case study to be a product marketer, because my expectation is that everyone is data focused. And so build your own data team on your product marketing team. That's the best advice I can actually offer.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Tamara.
Thanks so much.
All right. So we're hitting coffee break time. So I guess a couple logistical things. Be back here at 11:15. I think the agenda might be wrong. Is that right, Rose? That's still the case. So up next will be about product marketing excellence, the impossible dream. But yes, please be back here by 11:15. Also, there is going to be a feedback survey headed your way. Fill it out. You send surveys out for your job. You know, it's frustrating when people don't answer them, so answer them. Thank you.
Product marketing. Product marketing has grown to become one of the key pillars within an organization. And yet, a well-known frustration point within the community is that most of our colleagues still don't understand the daily responsibilities of a product marketer. But we wanted to break this cycle and shine a light on the incredible value that this role brings to the table, which is why we've designed a brand new book with this exact goal in mind. Product Marketing Misunderstood is guaranteed to equip you with the first-hand knowledge, techniques, and stories you need to amplify your role, establish your authority, and elevate your strategic value. Each chapter outlines and breaks down the most common product marketing principles, such as positioning, personas, segmentation, and OKRs, and flips them on their head to show you how applying your own trade on your colleagues and peers can give them the ultimate aha moment and finally understand what an influential and strategic asset you are. Page after page is filled to the brim with real-life actionable advice from the likes of Drift, Privy, Intercom, G2, Adobe, Zendesk, and more. And by the end of this book, you'll have the ultimate toolkit to present a formidable product marketing force around you and position yourself in a way that quite simply cannot be misunderstood. Want to be understood? Then read Misunderstood. Order your copy today.